She wished me gone before her birthday, so I gave her exactly what she asked for, just not in the way she meant. I came home 3 days early with white roses in one hand and a small lemon cake in the other, the kind Natalie used to love before expensive restaurants taught her to pretend simple things were beneath her. The house in Charlotte was quiet from the outside, porch lights glowing warm against the early evening, sprinklers ticking softly across the front lawn, every window reflecting a life I thought I still belonged to. I had left the office before 6 because I wanted to surprise her. 40 was a big birthday, and Natalie had spent months turning it into something closer to a campaign launch than a celebration. Private dining room, photographer, custom dress, guest list arranged by usefulness. I had paid deposits, answered calls, fixed scheduling problems, and smiled through every little reminder that my role was no longer husband so much as logistics. Still, I bought the roses. Still, I ordered the cake. That is what hope does to a man. It keeps showing up with both hands full, even after the door has been closing for years. I let myself in through the side entrance, careful not to make noise, and stopped near the hallway when I heard her voice in the living room. At first, I thought she was laughing. Then I heard my name. Adam is not the problem because he is cruel, Natalie said. That would be easier. He is just there. Safe. Predictable. Always waiting. I stood still, roses pressed against my chest, the cake box cold against my palm. Vanessa Reed, her best friend, said something too low for me to catch. Natalie answered with a sigh sharp enough to cut through the hallway. No, I mean it. I do not love him anymore. If Adam vanished before my birthday, honestly, that would be the best gift. The house did not move, but something in me did. It stepped back. Not dramatically. Not with noise. Just one quiet step away from the life I had spent 14 years holding together. The hallway light cut across the hardwood in a thin golden strip. I remember staring at it like it was a line I was no longer allowed to cross. The roses trembled slightly in my hand. Not because I was weak, but because sometimes the body hears the truth before the mind knows where to put it. Natalie kept talking. She mentioned Ryan Mercer, how he made her feel seen, how he understood ambition, how he did not make her feel like she was already old. She said my name again, softer this time, almost bored. That hurt worse than anger would have. Anger at least proves someone still believes you can reach them. Boredom is a door already locked. I looked down at the flowers, white petals perfect and useless, then at the little cake with her name written in yellow icing under a plastic window. Happy birthday, Natalie. A sentence from a man she wished would disappear. I did not walk into the living room. I did not ask her to explain. I did not beg for the dignity of being lied to properly. I set the roses on the hallway chair, placed the cake beside them, and stepped back outside with the same quiet I had entered with. In the garage, I sat behind the wheel of my car for almost 10 minutes, both hands resting on the steering wheel, my wedding ring catching the dashboard light. I thought about every bill I had paid without mentioning it, every apology I had accepted too quickly, every dinner where she corrected me in public and called it joking, every night she turned away in bed and left me feeling like a guest in my own marriage. The pain did not become rage. It became accounting. Emotional first, then financial, then legal. I started the engine and drove into the Charlotte evening without calling anyone, without leaving a message, without giving Natalie the scene she would have used to make herself the victim. She wanted me vanished before her birthday. Fine, but I was not going to vanish from life. I was going to vanish from hers, and I was going to take every piece of myself with me. The Charlotte skyline blurred through my windshield as I drove without a destination, past office towers still glowing with late workers, past restaurants filling with people who believed dinner could fix a day, past couples crossing sidewalks under streetlights like they still trusted the person beside them. I kept both hands on the wheel, my wedding ring cold against the leather, and waited for the part of me that had always rushed to explain, forgive, or repair to start begging for control. It did not. Something quieter had taken over. Not numbness. Numbness is empty. This was focus. I pulled into the far corner of a grocery store parking lot 20 minutes from home and shut off the engine. The night settled around the car. A cart rolled slowly across the asphalt, pushed by a weak breeze, one bad while clicking with every turn. That little sound felt too honest. Click, click, click. Years of being useful. Years of being predictable. Years of becoming the kind of man my wife could depend on so completely she stopped seeing me as a person. I looked at the ring on my left hand and remembered when Natalie first put it there. We were 29, broke enough to split appetizers, young enough to call it romantic, standing in a county courthouse because she said big weddings were for people trying to prove something. She cried when she said her vows. Real tears, or at least I believe they were real. She called me her safest place. For years, I carried that phrase like a medal. I did not understand that one day she would turn safety into an insult. My phone lit up on the console. Natalie. I did not answer. She called again, then sent a text. Where did you go? The roses are here. I stared at the screen until it went dark. She had found the flowers before she found the damage. That told me everything. I could imagine her standing in the hallway, seeing the roses on the chair, the cake beside them, realizing I had heard enough, but not knowing how much. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was annoyed. Maybe she was already preparing the version where I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too insecure to handle a private conversation. I had seen that trick before. Make the wound about the bleeding. I opened my banking app, not to move anything yet, but to look. Joint checking, joint credit card, birthday deposits, restaurant charges, photographer balance, designer boutique purchase. Every number looked ordinary until I remembered who had been paying for the celebration of my disappearance. I took screenshots, one after another, not because I wanted revenge, because clarity needs receipts. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to Peter Caldwell, the attorney who had handled my consulting firm paperwork years earlier. I did not call. Calls carry emotion. I sent an email instead, short enough that my hands did not have time to shake. Peter, I need to discuss a separation, asset protection, shared account exposure, and unauthorized event expenses. Available first thing tomorrow. Adam Whitaker. I read it twice, removed the word urgent because panic gives away too much, then hit send. The message disappeared. So did the last small fantasy that this was just a bad night. Outside the windshield, the grocery store lights buzzed against the dark. People pushed carts toward their cars, loading milk, paper towels, birthday candles, the ordinary supplies of lives still pretending to be stable. I thought about driving home, walking into the living room, and asking Natalie whether she meant it. But that question already had an answer. She meant it when she thought I was not listening. That was the purest version of the truth I was ever going to get. My phone buzzed again. Vanessa Reed this time. Adam, Natalie is upset. You should come back and talk. I almost laughed, but it caught somewhere behind my ribs. Of course Natalie was upset. Not because she had wished her husband out of her life. Because he had started listening. I placed the phone face down, started the engine, and drove toward a business hotel near South Park where I knew there would be clean sheets, a quiet lobby, and no hallway chair holding dead flowers. At the front desk, the clerk asked if it was just for one night. I looked at the small suitcase I had not packed, the ring still on my hand, the life I was about to audit from the outside, and said, for now. In the room upstairs, I removed my jacket, set my phone on the desk, and finally took off the ring. It made a small sound against the wood. Not loud, not final to anyone else. But to me, it sounded like the first door closing. Morning came through the hotel curtains in a thin gray line, and Adam Whitaker lay awake on top of the blanket with his wedding ring still sitting on the desk across the room. He had not slept so much as paused, eyes open, mind moving through 14 years in quiet loops. The first apartment in Charlotte with the noisy upstairs neighbor. Natalie studying for her project management certification at the kitchen table while he made coffee at midnight. The winter her mother needed surgery, and Adam used his vacation days to drive her to appointments, fill prescriptions, and sit in waiting rooms where the vending machine hummed louder than anyone spoke. He remembered Natalie crying in the parking garage after the hospital discharged her mother, wrapping both arms around him and whispering, "You are the safest place I know." Back then, safe sounded like love. Safe meant steady hands, paid bills, a car that started, a husband who knew when the pharmacy closed, and which soup she liked when life got too sharp. But somewhere along the way, the word changed its clothes. Safe became boring. Steady became predictable. Reliable became invisible. Adam sat up slowly and looked at the ring. It was smaller in daylight. Less symbolic. More like evidence. At 7:12, his phone buzzed. Peter Caldwell had replied. 9 o'clock. My office. Bring records, account access, property documents, and anything related to recent event expenses. Do not move funds until we speak. Adam appreciated that last sentence. Good lawyers understand that doing things properly is sometimes the only thing keeping pain from becoming a mistake. He showered, put on yesterday's shirt, and drove to Peter's office in a glass building near uptown. Charlotte was waking up around him, commuters merging with coffee in one hand, joggers waiting at crosswalks, delivery vans blocking lanes like the whole city still believed every routine mattered. Peter Caldwell was 60, silver-haired, and built like a man who had spent his career telling angry people to sit down before they hurt their own case. He listened without interrupting while Adam described the hallway, the roses, the cake, the phone call, Natalie's birthday plans, Ryan Mercer's name, the deposits, the text from Vanessa. The way the word vanished had sounded coming from his wife's mouth. When Adam finished, Peter leaned back and folded his hands. "You are not disappearing," he said. "You are separating. There is a difference." Adam nodded. "I know. Good. Because the difference matters." For the next hour, they built structure around the wreckage. Shared accounts would not be emptied, but unauthorized party charges could be disputed. Joint credit would be frozen for new non-essential spending after written notice. Adam's consulting firm accounts were already separate, but Peter wanted updated records anyway. Personal documents needed to be removed from the house quietly. Communication with Natalie would be limited to written form once notice was served. No threats. No late-night arguments. No emotional negotiations in a hallway full of flowers. Paper trail beats memory. Adam wrote that down, though he already understood it. Memory had brought him roses. Paper would get him out. By the time he left Peter's office, the sky had cleared, and the city looked almost too bright for the kind of decision he had made. He drove home while Natalie was at a meeting, parked in the garage, and stood for a moment beside the empty spot where her car usually sat. The house smelled faintly of roses now, sweet and funereal. The bouquet was still on the hallway chair, slightly open, petals beginning to loosen. The lemon cake sat beside it, untouched, her name bright under plastic. Adam did not move either one. Some witnesses should remain where they fell. Upstairs, he packed with the precision of a man refusing to steal from his own life. Clothes for 2 weeks. Passport. Birth certificate. Tax files. Business contracts. His father's watch. A box of photographs from before Natalie learned to smile at him like an obligation. He left the furniture, the art, the dishes, the things they had bought together when together still meant something. In the closet, half his shirts came down in neat groups. Hangers clicked softly, one after another. That sound hit harder than he expected. A marriage does not always end with shouting. Sometimes it ends with cotton sleeves sliding into a garment bag while the air conditioner hums and the neighbors mow their lawns. At the bottom of the nightstand drawer, he found the anniversary card Natalie gave him 7 years earlier. To the man who makes life feel safe. Adam read it once, then placed it back exactly where it had been. He was not there to collect proof that she had once loved him. He was there to stop funding the version of her that did not. Adam Whitaker returned home late that evening, the streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement, and the air smelled faintly of rain and winter leaves. The house felt different now, larger in emptiness, echoes of footsteps that no longer needed to be accounted for. He set down the small box with documents from Peter's office on the kitchen counter, spread carefully to ensure nothing was overlooked, the labels he had written in neat, precise handwriting marking each folder's purpose. His thoughts drifted to Natalie, her laughter from earlier that day in his memory, the sharpness of her words at breakfast still lingering like a bitter aftertaste. The living room sofa, once a shared space, now seemed like an exhibit in a museum dedicated to memories that belonged to someone else. Adam moved methodically, packing clothes into a suitcase, organizing toiletries, and leaving untouched the framed photographs of vacations, birthdays, and anniversaries, each a quiet testament to the life that had once been theirs together. Upstairs, he opened drawers and cabinets, transferring important personal files and documents into the secure box, making sure nothing of value was left behind. And yet he paused over the shelf where Natalie had left a small vase of dried flowers, petals curling at the edges, a relic of happier times he allowed to remain as a silent witness. The clock ticked steadily, reminding him of time's passage, of the deliberate steps he needed to take. He checked the locks, ensuring all windows and doors were secure, then paused in the hallway, glancing at the open doorway of the bedroom where their life together had unfolded, a mixture of warmth, routine, and quiet tension. Outside, the night had deepened, the sky overcast, streetlights reflecting on puddles from earlier rain, and the city was quieter now, almost holding its breath. Adam reflected on the months leading up to this, the planning, the conversations with Peter, the careful separation of accounts, property, and responsibilities, all executed to prevent chaos and ensure clarity. He moved to the study, taking the ledger, financial statements, and personal journals, placing them neatly in a protective folder. Every step was deliberate, methodical, as though performing a dance that ensured both presence and absence, acknowledging what had been while preparing for what must come next. In the kitchen, he cleaned up after himself, leaving no trace of immediate occupation aside from the suitcase and boxes waiting to be moved, and he lingered a moment over the calendar, noting upcoming appointments, birthdays, and obligations that would now require careful communication and management. As he descended the stairs, he felt a subtle shift, a release from tension, a recognition that the house, though still familiar, was no longer entirely his. Yet he had taken control of the process, maintained dignity and order in the face of dissolution, and preserved a sense of self amid the quiet unraveling of a life once shared. The night was still, the city even quieter, and Adam Whitaker paused at the front door, taking a slow breath, feeling both the weight of departure and the anticipation of the new path ahead, knowing the careful work he had done tonight laid the foundation for clarity, security, and the first steps toward a future no longer dictated by uncertainty or the sharp words that had started this journey. Adam Whitaker woke early to the soft light filtering through the curtains, the quiet of the house reminding him of the stark contrast to the chaos of recent months, and he moved through the kitchen, making himself a cup of coffee, the aroma filling the empty spaces once shared with Natalie, whose absence now felt more pronounced than any words could convey. He sat at the table, reviewing the documents he had organized the night before, each sheet representing a careful step toward reclaiming autonomy, a life mapped out in precise increments of time, energy, and attention. The phone rang, breaking the silence, and Adam answered with measured calm, listening to Peter on the other end outlining updates about accounts, insurance policies, and pending deadlines, all necessary details to secure the future he was methodically constructing. He then walked through the living room, touching the armrest of the couch as if acknowledging the ghost of routines past, remembering breakfast conversations and weekend plans that had dissolved under the weight of disagreement and separation. The study beckoned, and Adam entered, opening drawers to retrieve files and photographs he had not yet addressed, sorting through letters and notes from friends and family, placing them in a folder labeled for later review, the action both methodical and cathartic. Outside, the garden glistened from last night's rain, each leaf holding a droplet that reflected morning light, and he paused for a moment, allowing the serene scene to remind him that life continues and growth is inevitable, even after disruption. Returning to the kitchen, he prepared breakfast, arranging a plate methodically, though no one was present to share it with, a small ritual maintaining structure in a time of transition, and he sipped his coffee, eyes wandering to the calendar on the wall marking appointments and reminders, each notation a symbol of responsibility, continuity, and the careful balance between personal well-being and obligation. The clock ticked steadily, a metronome of progress and endurance, and Adam reflected on the conversations he had rehearsed, the emails he had drafted, the calls he had scheduled, all part of a larger plan to navigate the complexities of property, finances, and communication with Natalie, ensuring clarity and preventing misunderstandings. He moved to the hallway, checking doors and windows, ensuring security and readiness, and then returned to his study to finalize the organization of his paperwork, creating folders for immediate actions, upcoming meetings, and long-term planning, labeling each with precision, and reviewing notes about potential contingencies. He paused, considering the upcoming day, the meetings, the calls, and the visits he would make, preparing mentally for interactions that required patience, diplomacy, and steadfast adherence to his values, maintaining calm and clarity even under pressure. As the morning progressed, Adam felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, the foundation for a stable, structured day firmly in place. and he acknowledged that while the past could not be undone, each deliberate action was a step toward agency, confidence, and measured forward movement, a reclamation of control over his life and environment. 2 days before Natalie's birthday, Adam heard the final rehearsal of the life she thought would begin without him. He had returned to the house after lunch, not because he wanted another conversation, but because Peter needed one more insurance file and the original property binder from the study safe. The front driveway was empty, so Adam entered through the garage, moved quietly through the kitchen, and stopped when he heard Natalie and Vanessa read in the dining room. The party binder was open on the table, pages spread beside fabric samples, guest cards, and a printed seating chart with Adam's name placed near the far end like an obligation no one wanted close to the center. Natalie sounded bright, almost relieved. "After the party, I will figure out what to do with him," she said. Vanessa murmured something about timing. Natalie laughed softly. "Adam is too good to leave. That is the problem. He will wait, and he will forgive, and he will keep paying for things because that is what he does." The words did not cut like the first night. They clarified. A clean window hurts less than broken glass, but it shows you everything. Adam stood in the hallway with one hand on the study key, listening to the woman he had loved describe his loyalty as a weakness she could schedule around. Then Ryan Mercer's name entered the room, light and casual, the way people mention a restaurant they are excited to try. Natalie said Ryan might stop by after dinner if it did not look too obvious. Vanessa asked whether Adam would make a scene. Natalie answered without hesitation. "He will not. He hates scenes." Adam looked down at his shoes. She was right. He did hate scenes. He hated public ugliness, raised voices, the way private wounds become entertainment when people gather around them. But she had mistaken restraint for surrender. She had mistaken decency for a lack of options. He went upstairs while they kept talking, opened the safe, and removed the property binder, his passport folder, backup drives, and the small velvet box that held his father's watch. In the bedroom, the suitcase waited inside the closet where he had left it half-packed. He finished it in silence. 2 suits. For shirts, casual clothes, medication, documents. Nothing that belonged to both of them. Nothing sentimental enough to make him weak at the wrong moment. As he closed the zipper, he heard Natalie laughing downstairs, and the sound moved through the house like a door locking behind him. On his way out, he paused at the hallway chair. The roses had begun to wilt, their white petals curling at the edges. The lemon cake was still sealed, her name bright under the plastic lid, untouched by the woman it had been bought for. Adam picked up the cake, not the flowers. He did not know why at first. Maybe because the cake was small enough to carry. Maybe because some witnesses deserved to survive the room. In the study, he printed Peter's draft notice, signed where instructed, scanned it back, and sent the final approval. Then he opened his banking dashboard and, following Peter's written guidance, submitted requests to freeze new non-essential charges on the joint credit line and dispute the party expenses not yet finalized. He did not empty anything. He did not hide anything. He only stopped the machine that had been using his silence as fuel. By late afternoon, his car was loaded. Adam walked through the house one final time before the legal notice would arrive, seeing everything clearly now. The dining room where he had hosted her friends, the kitchen where he had cooked after long days, the bedroom where his absence had apparently become someone else's birthday wish. He placed his house key on the kitchen counter beside a plain white envelope. Inside was the notice, the temporary financial boundaries, Peter's contact information, and one handwritten line. "You asked for me to vanish before your birthday. I did, but I took my life with me." Then Adam closed the garage door, backed out into the Charlotte evening, and did not look at the house in the mirror. Adam drove through the outskirts of Charlotte, the sky muted with early evening light. Each turn and stop feeling like a quiet rehearsal of freedom. He did not check his rearview mirror. He did not glance at the roads he had taken for granted. Every street and intersection that had once carried mundane routines now held the weight of memory, but not regret. He parked near the small lakeside inn where he had booked a room under a different name, intending to remain unseen. Natalie's laughter, Vanessa's whispers, and the faint hum of the city faded behind him like a soft curtain. Inside the room, Adam laid out the documents from Peter carefully: financial boundaries, final correspondences, and temporary property rights. Each paper represented a boundary, a limit, a lesson he had learned over years of quiet patience. He then opened his laptop, scanning through emails and personal messages, confirming all notifications were redirected, all accounts updated, and all recurring charges paused. The action was methodical, almost ritualistic, as if each keystroke reminded him of the control he had maintained over his own life despite others' assumptions. In the corner of the room sat a small box of belongings he had taken from his home, sentimental but restrained, not enough to tether him emotionally, just enough to remind him of who he was. He brewed a cup of tea, steam rising slowly, a signal that stillness was possible. Meanwhile, outside, the evening moved on without him, a world that had expected his reaction to the chaos he had left behind. Adam opened the window slightly, letting in the crisp air, letting it sweep past him and erase the lingering tension from his shoulders. He considered the next steps, appointments with Peter to finalize remaining documents, a short trip to the countryside to think and recover, and, eventually, the possibility of a life that did not revolve around a home that had been shared but no longer felt like his own. He looked at the reflection in the window, composed, determined, the man who had chosen absence over confrontation, wisdom over anger, and calm over entanglement. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he allowed himself a quiet smile, imagining Natalie's confusion, her surprise at the empty space he had left behind, a space that spoke louder than any confrontation could. This was not revenge, it was autonomy, self-preservation, and clarity. The room, the papers, the tea, all symbols of a man who had quietly reclaimed his existence. And as he settled into the evening, Adam wondered, just briefly, how the story would be perceived when discovered. Would those watching from afar understand the restraint, the dignity, the meticulous planning? Would they recognize the strength it took to simply vanish and remain poised? Outside, life continued, oblivious yet steady, and inside, Adam prepared to rest, knowing the next chapter would begin not with argument, but with calm, deliberate steps, each one a declaration that his absence carried meaning, that leaving had been as necessary as living itself. The next morning was Natalie's birthday, and the first thing she noticed was not the envelope. It was the coffee, or rather, the absence of it. For 14 years, Adam had set the coffee maker before bed on important mornings, especially hers, because Natalie hated starting a day by waiting for anything. She came downstairs in a silk robe, phone already in her hand, expecting the smell of dark roast, a quiet happy birthday, maybe an apology for whatever mood he had been in the night before. Instead, the kitchen was silent. No coffee, no keys in the bowl, no laptop bag near the side door, no suit jacket on the chair. At first, irritation crossed her face before fear had permission to arrive. "Adam," she called, sharp enough to make the empty house answer back. She checked the garage. His car was gone. She checked the closet. His side had been cleaned out so neatly that the empty hangers seemed arranged on purpose. She checked the bathroom drawer. His razor, medication, and watch were gone. That was when the house finally looked empty. Not because he had taken much, but because he had taken the things that proved he expected to return. Natalie found the white envelope on the kitchen counter beside the house key. Her name was written across the front in Adam's calm handwriting, the same handwriting that had signed mortgage papers, birthday cards, restaurant contracts, and every check that made her big evening possible. Her fingers moved quickly at first, then slower. The separation notice unfolded in her hands. Temporary financial boundaries. Written communication through counsel. Non-essential joint credit activity paused. Property and business records secured. Peter Caldwell's contact information. Then the note. "You asked for me to vanish before your birthday. I did, but I took my life with me." Natalie sat down hard on the kitchen stool. For a moment, she did not cry. She got angry, because anger was easier, and because she still believed anger could summon him back into the role he had always played. She called him, straight to voicemail. She texted him. No answer. She called Vanessa. "He actually left," Natalie said, like the sentence did not make sense in her mouth. Vanessa was quiet on the other end. What did the note say? Natalie read it aloud, and for once Vanessa did not rush to comfort her. "Natalie," she said carefully, "maybe you should not have said that where he could hear." Natalie ended the call before accountability could grow teeth. By noon, the birthday began falling apart in small, humiliating pieces. The restaurant called first, asking for final payment authorization before they released the private dining room. Natalie gave them the joint card. Declined. She tried again, cheeks warming though no one was watching. Declined. The photographer texted next, saying the remaining balance had not cleared and she would not arrive without confirmation. The florist wanted a new card. The boutique sent an alert about a pending charge review. Every little luxury she had arranged around the idea of becoming someone new had been attached to the man she wished would disappear. And now he had. The balloons were delivered anyway, pale gold and white, floating in the living room like decorations for a party no one could afford to believe in. Natalie stood among them with her phone pressed to her chest, the designer dress hanging upstairs, the house too quiet around her. She messaged Ryan Mercer at 1:17. Rough morning. Can you still come tonight? He replied 23 minutes later. Might be complicated. Let us talk after things settle. That was when she understood the difference between attention and loyalty. Ryan liked the version of her with a private room, a photographer, and a husband paying bills in the background. He did not seem interested in the version standing in an empty kitchen with a legal notice in one hand. By late afternoon, Natalie was calling Adam every 10 minutes, then every 5, her voice changing in the messages she left. At first, cold, then annoyed, then shaken. Adam, this is cruel. Adam, you are making me look insane. Adam, please, just tell me where you are. The last one came out small. In the hotel room across town, Adam listened to none of them. He read the transcripts Peter had requested, saved every message, and placed the unopened lemon cake in the small refrigerator beside a bottle of water. It looked absurd there, her name still written in yellow icing. Happy birthday, Natalie. He closed the refrigerator door gently. Some gifts are not meant to be eaten. Some gifts become evidence of the exact moment a man finally stopped feeding an illusion. By 8:42 that night, Natalie found the address through a forwarded email from Peter Caldwell's office, and by 9:10, she was standing outside Adam's hotel room in the same designer dress she had bought for a birthday party that never happened. Her makeup had softened at the edges. Her hair was pinned too perfectly for a woman who had spent the day watching her life refuse to obey her, and her voice shook when she knocked. Adam opened the door only because Peter had advised him that one controlled conversation could prevent 10 chaotic ones. He did not invite her to sit on the bed. He did not touch her. He stood near the small desk where the lemon cake waited in its plastic box, her name still bright under the hotel lamp. Natalie saw it and covered her mouth. You kept it, she whispered. I brought it home before I knew you wanted me gone, Adam said. She flinched. Good. Not because he wanted to hurt her, but because truth should touch the place that lies tried to protect. Adam, I was angry. I was scared of turning 40. I felt invisible. He looked at her for a long second, remembering the hallway, the roses, the way her voice had sounded when she thought he was not there to be wounded by it. So you made me invisible first. Her eyes filled. I did not mean for you to leave. Adam almost smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No, you meant for me to vanish in the ways that were convenient for you. From the photos, from the table, from the parts of your life where I reminded you of what you had outgrown. But not from the mortgage, not from the credit card, not from the phone calls when something broke. The room went quiet except for the air conditioner humming under the window. Natalie looked at the cake again, then at his bare hand. The missing ring said what he did not need to repeat. I wanted you to prove you still loved me, she said. No, Adam answered softly. You wanted proof that I would accept being erased and still keep paying the cost of the eraser. She sat down slowly in the chair by the door, as if her knees had lost the argument before her mouth could continue it. Can we fix this? She asked. Adam placed the cake on the desk between them, unopened, untouched, too small to carry 14 years, and somehow doing it anyway. You did not lose me because of one sentence, he said. You lost me because that sentence finally explained the marriage I had been living in. Natalie cried then, quietly at first, then with the exhausted sound of someone realizing the apology had arrived after the consequence. Adam handed her Peter's card and a folded page with the next steps for written communication. Go home, he said. Call your own attorney. Do not come here again without notice. She looked up at him like she expected the old Adam to step out from behind his face and rescue her from this moment. But the old Adam was gone. Not missing. Not lost. Gone by choice. At the door, Natalie turned once more. Happy birthday to me, right? She said, bitter and broken. Adam looked at the cake, then at the woman who had turned his presence into a burden and his absence into a crisis. Some birthdays reveal what you have, he said. Yours revealed what you took for granted. When the door closed, it did not slam. It clicked softly, almost gently, because some endings do not need volume to be final. Adam stood there for a while, listening to her footsteps fade down the hallway, then opened the small refrigerator, placed the cake back inside, and sat at the desk to send Peter one clean message. Conversation completed. No further direct contact. Outside the hotel window, Charlotte kept glowing as if nothing sacred had ended. Maybe nothing had. Maybe what ended was only the illusion that love could survive being treated like furniture. So tell me honestly, if someone wished you out of their life but still expected your support, would you stay to prove your love, or would you disappear with your dignity intact? And if this story made you think about respect, boundaries, and the quiet power of finally choosing yourself, stay with this channel. Because sometimes the strongest ending is not revenge. It is a closed door and a man who no longer explains why he deserved to be seen.